What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about lowering links. So for the Grand Cherokee, if you've got the Overland or the Summit, even the high altitude, you've got Quadra-lift suspension, which is just basically a fancy airbag system where it's a closed system where it can raise and lower the vehicle for off-roading purposes. Normal cruising height, and then you've got off-road 1 and then off-road 2 that raises the vehicle, and it even has an exit entry, so it lowers the vehicle to make it easier to get in and out. That's what the vehicle has, and it uses links in the suspension components connected to a sensor, and that helps give the vehicle the height, right? You can modify the links, or actually just replace them, put a different link in place and change the length of it, and doing so, that will change the height of the vehicle as it sits. Currently, mine is currently parked in Sport. I tend to drive in Sport most of the time because I like the snappiness of the transmission. I like the look of it, a little bit lower to the ground. Oh, that's another thing. When you're riding in Sport, it lowers the vehicle about ½ an inch over normal ride height. So what you're looking at here, you can see that wheel gap. Oh, it's looking pretty good, huh? It's got a nice overall look to it. Get low. I'm a fan of the way that it looks, if I'm honest. I've always liked the look of a lowered SUV, and it's not slammed on its nuts. It's just got an overall nice look to it. So I had made custom links, and today we're going to take a look to see how I did that. So you start up the vehicle, get the up arrow. This is for your Quadra-lift. You hit that up twice. Sorry, my console is dirty. Whatever. Also, this is annoying. Anybody else have issues with this? The chrome starting to peel. I painted that at one point. It's peeling. Need to figure something out with that. That'll be another day. And on the dash, off-road 2. So once it's raised all the way up into off-road 2, then you go into your settings, go to suspension, tire jack mode. You want to turn that on. Okay, tire jack mode keeps the Jeep from self-leveling while it's parked, because what it does like to self-level itself if it's on uneven terrain. Excuse me. So the tire jack mode is to prevent that from happening. We're going to be crawling underneath it to get into the back, and well, you don't want this thing to go and settle down on you. Now that we have a little bit more room, this guy is the link. So you can see that this whole piece is the sensor, because the sensor's on the frame. The link is on an arm that swings, and it goes all the way up to the upper control arm. So if you change the height of this, the sensor is like, oh, well, okay, so I need to raise it or lower it, and that's what we're doing here. So you want to be very careful about pulling it off of this connection. This arm is quite brittle, Might take a time or two. I found that just the top, just a little twist is enough, and it pops out. Now, at the bottom, you guys still with me? Okay, let's try that again. Okay, and then it just pops right off. Now, I'll show you in a minute, but there are these little pins that you put through where the ball ends up going into the socket, and that's supposed to help keep it from popping out. But I've been running these for about 2 years now without those pins, and I've had no issue with it. So that's pretty much subjective. That is up to you if you want to run the pins. They come with the pins, but I've had no issues. Use your judgment and do it as you please. The next job is to go underneath to the arms in the back. So let's go check that out. So what we're looking at here are the custom links that I had made, and these over here are the links that come with the vehicle. So you can tell their lengths are slightly different. You can see that the backs are longer for the stock size than if we tighten these up, because there's a curve that they have put in place. Doesn't really want to lay flat on the table, but there's a difference in length that you can see here. The fronts are shorter for the stock length. So what that means is when you want to go lower in your vehicle, then you increase the length of the front. And then when you want to go lower in the rear, you want to decrease the length of your links. This took me several tries to get this correct. It was a lot of put them on, see how it looked, take them off, twist them so that it's resizing these accordingly. I don't know, it took me like 8 times, maybe a dozen times of looking at both the front and back, trying to get it just right. And the sensor is actually very sensitive too, so any small minute difference that you make will drastically change the height. You know, we're talking like one rotation of this this threaded rod ends up being, you know, a much more noticeable difference when it's on the vehicle. So I guess I realized I'm talking about this kind of a little bit backwards. What exactly did I do with my links? How to do this is I purchased threaded rod. I don't know if that's showing up. And it's quite long. I think I got, it might have been 3 feet. It was in a giant long tube box, and I simply cut it down to size. Looks like I used this side, but I then welded to try and make something else work. That's why there's a blob right there. Blob. Okay, so I had used this threaded rod. I ordered this stuff off Grainger. Now, I'm not supported by Grainger. Just happens to be that Grainger was pretty much the only company that sold this stuff. There wasn't any place local. I bought this threaded rod because you want to do 4 sides. You need 2 of these sockets for each side. So you have to buy one of these ball socket combinations, which come out to be, at the time, I think it was about $8 for just one socket. So 8 times 8, $64, plus this threaded rod. This was only a few dollars, so call it $70. It also came with this was the ball, and it came with its own nut. These are the little metal clips that I was telling you about. But the idea is you thread once you have the ball. I might regret this. So once you have the ball in the socket, then you thread this up on through, and then you pinch it on there. And you can kind of see that when you have the pin pushed all the way through, there's really no way of the ball coming out of the joint. So this is what I was saying comes with them. I have found that I haven't needed to use that, but other people say to use it. I mean, you might as well. I just chose not to, and I have been successful. Let me get a caliper and a set of pliers so I can pull that out, and we'll talk about lengths on these. If you don't already know, this is a caliper, and this right here is a way for you to measure the length of items, objects. And if what we're looking at here are the backs, I guess we'll do millimeters. Most people know that, less people know inches. I'm measuring from the outermost of the OEM links here, and it comes out to 91.17 millimeters. My links that I had made, 77.19. So we got 91. Is that what my math? Is that what we got? 91 the first time to 77. So we're looking at, a difference of 14. I can math. So 14 millimeters shorter going in the back, and that gave it a nice, it kind of leveled out the rear of the vehicle, made it look a little bit more. It's a little bit more flat versus raked, and it's a cleaner look, in my opinion. I like that look, more of a flat. And so then now looking at the fronts, the stock are 124.47, so we'll call it 124.5 versus the length that 129 and 5/6. So 124 to 125. So that was only a difference of 5. Where I'm getting at here is I lowered the rear suspension a lot more than I lowered the front, because remember I was talking about the rake. If you've got it where the vehicle is sitting up a little bit too high in the rear and you want it to be a little bit more flat, then you drop just the rear. But then if you're dropping the whole vehicle, then you gotta lower all of it, both front and back. By making this 5 millimeter drop, that lowered the vehicle about, well, we'll test it out in a little bit later on in the video. We'll put the OEMs back on, and then we'll measure, and then we'll do the links that I had made, and then we'll do a comparison to figure out just how much the 5 millimeters in the front and 13, I believe, no, 15, 14, I'll math it again, how much of a difference lowering the rear makes with those adjustments. To continue talking about what I've done here is you've got the threaded rod. The threaded rod, obviously it threads into the base of your socket, and you want to make sure that that doesn't turn on the threaded rod. If it turns on the threaded rod, then that's going to change the length. It could get longer, could get shorter, and then you're dealing with your vehicle being inconsistent with its ride height. So you need to use a nut, and then you tighten the nut up against the socket. In doing that, will keep the socket from wanting to walk away. It came with these nuts here, but I wanted to take it a little bit more of a step farther, and I ended up going with one that has a nylon lock nut. The nylon keeps it nice and tight so that the nut itself doesn't want to move. And so then if you tighten that up against your socket, the nylon's not going to want to walk away even more than just being tightened up. So it's almost like a sense of double peace of mind. I want to clean these off while that I have these here. I want to give them a little bit of a clean, degrease, freshen them up again because they're gritty. I don't want to put these back on with them being super gritty, and then when I do, I'm just going to fill the cap with grease so that it will allow it to move nice and smooth. So I'm going to use a little acetone to clean these off. I'm sure any common degreaser will be just fine. I just find acetone works really good with any type of grease or anything that's you know, like an oil, a grease, a paint. They also say use gloves, but I mean, girls, they use acetone to take off their nail polish, right? So what's the big deal? And if we want, we can hit it with the wire wheel as well, and that will get like the hard caked on stuff. But for the most part, the acetone will clean off most of the oils and grease. Let's hit these with the wire wheel. Anytime you're working with a wire wheel like this, these wires can fling off, and if this thing is rotating over a couple thousand RPM, then these things can fling out, they can get you in the eye, then you're going to go blind. So always wear eye protection. Look, see that right here? This one just came out. See? Look at the difference. I just polished the cap part. Still got the part where the thread's going. Look at the difference. Looks good. Now for the really gross, gunky ones. There we go. So I've noticed that I still have some gunk on the inside, and I'm just gonna hit it with some brake clean. That should blast all the rest of the gunk that's in there. Just get rid of it. Oh, that one got me right in the face. Good thing you're wearing eye protection. It's got a little bit of stubborn grease that doesn't want to come out, but at the end of the day, that's quite alright. I mean, it's not going to end up being perfect. While these are drying, let's go put the OEMs on. I have the OEM links installed. I'm going to turn it on, and you'll see that it will end up self-adjusting because it's going to be like, hey, the height's a little different, so it's going to want to adjust. Controls, settings, suspension, tire jack mode off. So that's off-road 2. Go down to off-road 1. That's off-road 1. That's normal. And if I put it into sport, this is aero. When you put it into sport, it goes into aero regardless of what speed. However, if you have it in just normal drive, you'll go into aero when you reach highway speeds. Now we're going down to the exit entry mode. So those are all the different heights for the OEM links. Now I'm going to raise it back up again, all the way up to off-road 2. And I'm going to end up switching out the OEM links to my custom links. You know what? No, we're going to go back to normal ride height. Let's take a look at it from around the vehicle. So that's normal ride height with the OEM links. Alright, if we're looking at the center of the hub going straight up, like 33, I mean not perfect, but 33 and a half. No idea if that's coming up on the camera. It's like 33 and a half in the front, just about 34 in the rear. But if you look at the space, just visually, it looks like there's so much more room higher up in the back. It's 4 1/8. And this is like 5 1/8. Not exact measurements, but that's what we're looking at here. I'm going to raise this up to off-road 2 so I can pull out the OEM links and put mine in. So what you want to do, you don't have to, I recommend it, use an extremely greasy and dirty grease gun. And you want to put grease into the caps. No idea if this is going to work. Seem to do all right. I never said that this was a clean project. We've got grease in all of our fittings. Pretty much ready to go. I'm gonna go stick these in, probably make a giant mess. I don't really have a lot of space, and if I'm dealing with the grease, you guys are gonna know what it'll end up looking like, so use your imaginations. I'm gonna go install these off camera. So now with the lowered links, this is off-road 2. This is off-road 1. This is now normal. Now we are in aero mode. So this is sport. Sport will put it into aero mode, but even in normal drive, when you reach highway speeds, it will go into aero. It does that automatically. And then going down one more, here is exit entry. All right, I'm gonna bring it up to normal ride height. So now let's go take a tape measure and see what we got. I forget what I had for heights before, but here we're at 3. Going to the back. It's a little bit more level. It's not completely squared off, but we're at about 3.5. So from ground to the top of the fender, I have no recollection of what it was. I'll have to go back, watch the footage, and I'll post it over the, well, in real time it'll make sense to you guys, but to me, I don't remember. So we're at 32, it's about 32.5. And just under 32.5, maybe 32.25. So there you have it. That's how you do lowering links. I already had them made, so I couldn't give you an like a real-time build of it. So I hope my explanations on how I went about doing it made sense to you guys, and the lengths that I chose. And I'll throw links in the description for where I got the parts. I got them at Grainger. Again, I'm not sponsored by them. They just happen to be one of the only places that I could find the parts to do this job. It's less expensive doing it yourself than to purchase online. There are companies that make these things so that you can just make them and then swap them on your own. Have a little fun. Do it yourself. DIY. See what I did there? Okay, well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next video.